Try to remember something nice someone said to you last week. Take a second. A compliment, a kind text, anything. Now try to remember the last time someone criticized you, even a little. Notice which one came back faster. Notice which one came with more detail. The tone of their voice, maybe the exact words, maybe even where you were standing when it happened. That's not a coincidence, and it's not because you're an unusually negative person. It's because your brain is built that way. Every brain is. There's a name for this in psychology, and once you learn it, you'll start noticing it everywhere. It's called negativity bias, and it might be the single biggest reason your inner monologue sounds like a highlight reel of your worst moments, on a loop, while your best moments barely get a mention. In 2001, a psychologist named Roy Baumeister, along with several colleagues, published a paper that pulled together decades of research under one blunt title, Bad is Stronger Than Good. They went looking for areas where positive and negative experiences might carry equal weight in the human mind. Relationships, learning, memory, first impressions, feedback at work. Case after case, they found the same pattern. A single bad interaction with a partner does more damage than a single good interaction repairs. One piece of harsh feedback outweighs several pieces of praise. A stranger's scowl registers faster and lingers longer than a stranger's smile. The researchers weren't measuring people who'd had a hard day or grown up in a tough environment. This showed up across studies, across populations, again and again. It looked less like a personality trait and more like a setting, something built into the hardware. So why would a brain be built to hold on to the bad stuff so much harder than the good? Here's where it gets interesting, because the answer isn't really about memory at all. It's about staying alive. Picture two early humans walking through tall grass. One of them notices a beautiful patch of flowers and thinks, "That's nice," and moves on. The other notices a faint rustle in the grass that might be a predator, and that thought doesn't just pass through. It locks in, it gets replayed, it gets attached to the sound, the smell, the time of day, every detail the brain can grab. Because next time, that detail might be the difference between noticing the danger early enough and not noticing it at all. The flower person and the predator person both survived that day. But over thousands of generations, the descendants of the people who paid closer attention to threats and who remembered them more vividly had a small but real edge. Missing a beautiful sunset costs you nothing. Missing a predator costs you everything. Evolution doesn't need both responses to be equally strong. It just needs the dangerous one to win. That asymmetry didn't go away when humans stopped worrying about predators in the grass. It's still running, just aimed at different targets now. A tense email from your boss, a friend who didn't text back, a comment under something you posted. None of these are life-threatening, but to the part of your brain doing the filing, a social threat and a physical one get processed through a lot of the same circuitry. There's a structure deep in your brain called the amygdala, and it plays a major role in tagging experiences with emotional significance before they even reach conscious memory. Researcher Elizabeth Kensinger, who has spent years studying the relationship between emotion and memory, has found that negative experiences tend to get encoded with more sensory detail than positive ones. Not just something bad happened, but the exact words, the exact face, the exact room. Positive memories, by comparison, often get stored in a more general, fuzzy way. You remember that a vacation was nice. You remember in painful clarity the specific sentence someone used to embarrass you in front of your class 15 years ago. This is also why a single harsh comment can erase an entire conversation full of kind ones. Your brain isn't doing the math evenly. It's not averaging 10 positive comments and one negative one into a slightly positive overall score. The negative one gets stamped important, remember this, and the rest get filed under fine, nothing to learn here. There's a number that gets thrown around a lot in workplace psychology, sometimes called the 5-to-1 ratio. Different studies land on slightly different figures, but the underlying finding keeps showing up. It often takes somewhere around 5 positive interactions to offset the emotional impact of a single negative one. Managers who only point out mistakes and never acknowledge what's going well end up with teams that feel constantly criticized, even if, on paper, the positive feedback technically outnumbered the negative. Now think about what this means for the version of events constantly running in your own head. If you had a conversation today that included 9 warm moments and 1 slightly awkward one, Which one do you think you'll be replaying tonight? Your brain isn't being dramatic on purpose. It's running the same ancient threat detection software that once scanned the grass for movement, except now it's scanning your social world for anything that might signal rejection, embarrassment, or danger to your standing with other people. And when it finds something, even something small, it grabs on tight. This also explains something almost everyone has experienced: lying awake at night replaying something embarrassing you did years ago in vivid detail, while 100 completely ordinary, perfectly fine days from that same year have vanished without a trace. Those ordinary days didn't get flagged as important. The cringe-worthy moment did. Your brain filed it as data worth keeping, just in case a similar situation ever comes up again and you need to avoid repeating it. There's a cruel irony buried in here. The system exists to protect you. It's trying to help you avoid future pain by making sure you never forget past pain. But in a world where most of the threats are just awkward small talk or a slightly cold reply, the system ends up working overtime on things that don't actually need that much protection. It also helps explain why criticism from strangers on the internet can feel disproportionately heavy, even when it's outnumbered by support. 100 kind comments and one cruel one isn't a 100-to-1 win in your head. The cruel one gets the amygdala's attention. The kind ones, pleasant as they are, often don't carry the same kind of emotional weight that makes a memory stick. So is there anything you can actually do about a bias that's been running since before humans had language? Not erase it. That's not really on the table, and honestly, you wouldn't want to. A brain with zero negativity bias would be a brain that doesn't learn from pain, doesn't avoid repeating mistakes, and doesn't pick up on real warning signs. The goal isn't to delete the system. It's to notice when it's firing at something that doesn't deserve that level of attention. Some of the research on this points to a surprisingly simple countermeasure: deliberately slowing down on the good stuff. Psychologist Rick Hansen has described it as the difference between a brain that's like Velcro for negative experiences and Teflon for positive ones. Information slides off the positive side unless you make a point of holding on to it. Sitting with a good moment for even 10 or 15 extra seconds, actually noticing it instead of letting it pass by, appears to give it a better chance of being encoded the way negative moments get encoded automatically. It won't rebalance the scale completely. The bias is too old and too deep for that. But it's the difference between a system that's permanently rigged and a system that's heavily weighted, with at least some room to push back. Next time you catch yourself replaying an awkward exchange from a week ago in full detail, while a dozen pleasant ones from the same week are nowhere to be found, you can recognize what's actually happening. That's not your personality. That's not evidence that the bad moment mattered more than the good ones. That's just an old survival system still scanning the grass, still trying to keep you safe from something that this time was never actually dangerous at all.